Hi everybody, my name is Dr. Yasmine Flores and I am from the Department of Music here at El Paso Community College. Today I want to introduce you to a new show that we're going to have here on EPCC TV. That show is called The Arts at EPCC. This vehicle is to showcase our 5 departments in the arts. That is theater, music, art, dance, and mass comm. And we want to bring folks in every week to talk to them to find out more about these departments. We want to talk to students, faculty about upcoming projects, and projects from the past. We want to introduce every faculty member to you here at EPCC in the arts and talk about the wonderful things that they're doing for the community. Upcoming shows, upcoming podcasts, upcoming radio programs through mass comm, all for you. So please join us every week so that we can be entertained with my special guest every week. Our first episode is with Ted Carver, and after that we will be introducing other coordinators from the other departments to talk to them. Once we do that, we're going to start to go into the classrooms eventually and talk to students about what they're working on, so that you can see your grandkids or your children here at El Paso Community College. Hi, Ted. How are you?
I'm good, Yasmine. How are you?
I'm doing very good. It's great to have you on here.
Well, it's wonderful to be here.
So, thank you. Yes, welcome everybody. This is the Arts at EPCC. My name is Dr. Yasmine Flores, and I'm from the music department here. And with me today is Ted Carver from the theater department here at EPCC. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and so today we're talking all about theater. And I want to first of all talk about you a little bit and get everyone to get to know you better. Tell me a little bit about yourself, sir.
I'm homegrown. I went to Isleta High School.
Okay.
And I got a bachelor's degree and a master's degree at UT El Paso in theater.
Very good.
And when I was in school, and even before that, I was one of these very strange children who had this drive all of a sudden. I was like 11 years old. I was writing full-length plays. I wanted to be a playwright. And so that's kind of what I studied when I went to college. But of course, when you go to UTEP, you kind of do a general education in theater. And so I got an experience in acting and directing and playwriting, and not a very successful experience in technical theater. But because I'm not very competent in that arena. But so I got a really good I'm a theater, what I was told once, I'm a theater generalist. Okay. And so I'm locally educated, and I did run my own theater here in town for 10 years.
Wow.
I founded a theater called Aardvark Theater back in 1997.
I remember hearing of that.
And we were in existence for almost 10 years. We like 9.5 years. And I was the artistic director, and I was the chief cook and bottle washer, and I did everything, and I did learn how to light a show with, I think we had 9 instruments. I learned how to light a show with 9 instruments.
Oh my goodness.
I learned how to build sets. Not very well built, but they were sets. The people who worked with me at Aardvark used to laugh because I was famous for going to like fabric stores and buying yards of fabric and coming back going, I can make a set out of this. And they were like, oh God, we're going to have another fabric set.
Oh no.
But that, it worked.
Right.
And it was cheap. Right. When you're a community theater, cheap is the name of the game. So I did that for almost 10 years.
Wow.
I've taught in various arenas. And I lived in San Antonio for 4 years and Corpus for 2 years. Kind of took a theatrical hiatus.
Okay.
I wrote when I was there. So
how fun.
Did a lot of stuff in my life.
I can hear that. I can see that. So, okay, so you came on board here at EPCC about 2 years ago.
Correct.
And so you've done so much. Before that, though, you worked here for a short time.
I did. I was an adjunct faculty member, like from 2016 to 2018.
Okay.
But prior to that, I worked here for like 7 years, I think, fresh out of college.
Wow.
I got a degree, a master's degree in theater. My parents were hysterical. They thought I was going to starve to death, you know. What will he ever do? Obviously, I've not starved to death. And so I graduated, and like 3 days after I graduated, my parents were in deepest mourning. And the phone rang, and it was Shirley Caskey at EPCC in the English department at Valle Verde. And my mother said, "There's some woman from the community college who wants to talk to you." I'm like, "Uh-oh, what did I do?"
Uh-oh, right.
So I get on the phone, and she said, "This is Shirley Caskey, Mr. Carver. I understand you just got a master's degree." I said, "I did." She said, "How would you like a job?" And I was like, "Okay."
Right.
And so she said, "I'm at Valle Verde. When can you be here?" And we lived right across the street from Valle Verde. I said, "I can be there in an hour." And she said, "All right." And I went up and interviewed, and she hired me.
How about that?
Yeah, talk about serendipity.
Yeah.
And I taught in the English discipline for about 7 years. I was an adjunct faculty member.
Wow.
And that was an experience.
So awesome. Yeah. So you've been with the college longer than I thought.
Off and on for a long time.
How about that? That's awesome. So Ted, let me talk to you a little bit about some of the past shows. And I really want to talk about My Sister.
Of course.
I loved that show so much. I went to go and see it over at Trans Mountain. And so, yeah, tell me a little bit about that production.
It's based on an actual, an actual occurrence that took place in Lyon, France, in the 1930s. These two young women were hired as housekeepers in the house of this kind of upper middle class home, and they were considered. I remember hearing Wendy Kesselman, who was the playwright, very dramatic and dark, and I was very young, and I was that's the kind of playwright I want to be associated with. And so she was describing this play, and she said they were considered the gems of housekeepers in this little town in France. And they were like, if you had them, you had something working for you. And they were evidently quite proficient at what they did. And one of them was a remarkable cook, and one of so that kind of thing. And they're sisters. They are sisters. And through a strange turn of events, this kind of inhumane treatment they received. They weren't tortured or anything, but they were housekeepers in an upper middle class household. And so the woman who was their boss and her daughter, and the husband was actually part of the true story, not part of the play. They didn't interact with him, really. And they were kind of isolated. They were kept up in this little garret bedroom, this unheated garret bedroom. And it got kind of rooty-tooty up there. And eventually, they kind of lose it, and they murder the woman who has hired them and the daughter. And as we were talking earlier, it's not just I'm going to shoot you. No, it was a brutal murder. They ripped out their eyes. Oh yeah. Right. They got knives and cut them up and all kinds of horrible things.
And that didn't happen in the production, but that happened in real life.
Right. It's suggested in the production.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yeah, it was pretty shocking.
Right. And so I read the article, happened to stumble on it one night. You're doing your Google search and you click on articles, you're scrolling, and
Fun French murders.
Right, yeah, exactly. And I was reading this article and I was like, they did what?
Yeah.
Okay. And so I didn't know the added element, of course, of the relationship that was in the production. So beautiful job with that.
Well, thank you.
I have to say, absolutely. And as far as, let's talk about shows that you've been doing during the pandemic.
Well, in August, we uploaded a virtual production, or a streamed production, I guess you'd say, onto the EPCC YouTube channel, which was a one-act play by Eugene O'Neill, which is called Thirst, written in 1913. the Titanic had sunk in 1912, and so he wrote this play kind of as a reaction to the sinking of the Titanic.
Wow.
And it takes place on a life raft, and there's these three characters: this man who's called the gentleman, this girl who's called the dancer, and then this other character who's called the sailor. And these three characters on this raft, and this kind of the machinations that go on this raft, and they're all kind of delirious, and they've all been on this raft for a couple of days. They have not had any water and not had any food, and they're seeing things, including they do see the actual fins of sharks out in the water. So we had a lot of fun with it. Dom, our tech director, he really wanted to do it. I said, great, let's do it. I love O'Neill. And so Dom came up with this great concept for the show where we set the thing on a conference table rather than in a raft. And we had this screen behind the show with this kind of water. And the funny thing is, every so often in this video that we used of this float of this water behind the set, every so often you'd see this guy on water skis go across the water. And the first time it happened, I remember I looked at it and went, "Oh, where did that come from? This is 1913. I don't think that's appropriate." But the more crazy the show got, the more it worked.
Oh my God.
And we had a great time doing it. It was a lot of fun. Had three really talented young actors who really worked hard on it.
Wow.
And so we did that. That was uploaded in August. We've had, 1,600 views on YouTube. Yeah, it's
That's
really
awesome.
wonderful. Great comments from people who've seen it.
Yeah.
So that worked so well. We're now doing another one now, which we will film next week.
Okay.
And then we're going to do one in the latter part of April as well.
Very good. How about the one that's going on now?
It is a 1940s radio drama, which is called, pardon me, Candy Matson, P.I., and the Cable Car Murder. And it's very campy. And it's very fun.
I saw the Instagram.
Yeah, it's very over the top. I'm so lucky I have a great cast, and it gives, even though there's not very much physical movement and not a lot of blocking, it gives students a chance to use their voices. And so it's a really good training tool for that.
Okay.
And then that will be filmed next week. So probably it'll go up on YouTube late February, maybe.
Okay.
And then we're so lucky we're working with Mass Comm and Michael Head, who works in the Mass Comm. He's a professor. And he's editing and filming, working all his magic. So we're so lucky to have that happening.
That's great. And it's so funny story that I'm going to quickly tell here. So I didn't know who Michael Head was. And then talking to Alex Hinojosa from MassComm, she sends an email to everybody in MassComm, and they have their little pictures. And I was like, that's the guy that's diagonal from me in the offices at school. It's the man right next to Sue Selk.
That's funny.
And I thought he taught history. And so... So I was like, well, now I know who he is. Okay, well, that's really cool. And it's so great when we get to collaborate on things. That is really terrific. So now the question is, let's talk about the theater degree plan.
Okay.
And so my question to you, and I've got my little notes here that I'm checking periodically, are any of your classes sequential?
Theoretically, they are.
Okay.
But students are allowed to take classes out of sequence.
Okay.
On my side of the degree plan.
Okay.
And when I say on my side of the degree plan, what I'm talking about is I am traditionally linked to what would be considered performance. Because I teach acting 1 and acting 2.
Got it.
And our bread and butter class, the basic class, is theater appreciation, which formerly was known as Intro to Theater.
Okay.
Dom, our technical director, teaches the tech classes, and so that includes Stagecraft 1, Stagecraft 2, and that includes the practicums. And so those stagecraft classes must be taught in sequence because he's teaching students not only the craft of that process, but he's teaching them safety. And so it is extremely important that they take those classes in order. For me, students contact me and say, I didn't take acting 1 in the fall, but I would really like to take acting 2 in the spring. Will you allow me into the class? And frequently I'll let them into the class, especially if they've had some sort of background, like they've taken theater appreciation. But I do always try to, voice the little codicil. You're going to have to take acting 1 at some point if you're going to get a degree in theater. It's important to do that. So whether you take it with me or someone else, you got to go through those rudimentary exercises.
Of course, of course. So, and that's good to know. And so So a little bit different from our degree plan for sure. We have to do ours sequentially.
Right.
There's like 1 or 2 courses you can take out of sequence, but actually no, they're not sequential. So never mind. Yes, everything is sequential.
Right.
So, okay, well that's good to know. So there's a tiny little bit of flexibility there. What is theater practicum? Because I was glancing at your degree plan.
So if you're a student, Yasmine, and you enroll in Stagecraft 1 or Stagecraft 2, you learn all the theory behind the process of building sets, lighting a show, doing sound design. You learn all that theoretical information.
Sure.
A brief history of it, how it's developed, what you do, what's safe, what's not safe, what is accepted in the industry. And then you take the practicums, which are theoretically supposed to go hand in hand with these classes, and you have practical experience. You get hands-on experience. So you study the process of lighting a show, and then you get to help light a show.
That's
or
cool.
you study the process of building a set.
Right.
You know, you learn how to build a flat, and then in the practicum, you build flats. You learn how to build those canvas walls that surround a set.
Okay.
So it's the practical class. That's why it's called a practicum.
Okay, and so so they get to assist Dom
Absolutely.
in building the set and lovely sets that they've built over
Dom
the years.
does great work.
He does beautiful stuff.
We're so lucky to have him.
You are,
Yeah.
and we're going to have him on the show
Oh, good.
later.
Good.
So it'll be a few episodes from now, and I'll get to hear that side of the theater portion. Very good. So now let me ask you about the profession, the theater profession. Obviously, everybody knows that you can go off and become a Hollywood actor.
Sure.
Right. Realistically speaking,
when reality smacks you in the face,
Right.
right? Yeah.
yes,
That's what happens.
what do you suggest people do that are
Well, I think, and I say this to students all of the time, and a lot of them just kind of like smile and roll their eyes and walk the other way. I say, if you learn the technicality of theater, if you learn to light a show in some capacity, or you learn to build sets, or you learn how to be part of a crew, or you study stage managing, and you're good at it, you learn your craft and you learn it well, you can get a job somewhere.
right.
You can actually ply your trade in theater. If, and this is not to be demeaning in any way, but if you decide you want to be an actor, the thought warms my heart and makes me happy, but it may be a very different kind of struggle.
Right.
Because there's an actor standing on every street corner plying his trade.
Right.
And so it is a much more competitive, difficult, gruesome process in a lot of ways, because you're going to get a lot of rejections probably.
Wow.
So what I always say to students when, I'm going to go off to New York and be an actor, I'm like, I'm proud of you. I think it's a great thing to do. But before you leave, before you pack your bags and get on that plane to go to New York and drive across country, whatever you're going to do me a favor. Since you're here in school, get certified to teach in the public schools, because you'll have something you can fall back on when you don't get a part in a Broadway show.
Right.
And usually, a lot of students, once again, roll their eyes and walk the other way. But occasionally you get one who's smart and says, I'm doing it now, Mr. Carver. And I'm like, oh, I just want to put you in a bottle and take you home.
Right.
It makes me so happy to hear that you're doing something that might put food on the table.
It's true. And the arts, that can be said generally, I think, with a lot of the arts. And unfortunately, because of the society that we live in today, the appreciation for the arts has sort of sadly diminished in some ways. And then art is also more accessible now. It's less expensive than it once was. And so you can look at Google to look at a piece of art now. You don't have to go to the museum.
Right.
You can check out, bootleg movies on YouTube or other places. You can download music from YouTube as well. I mean, there's just so many things that you can do illegally, mind you.
And we're not encouraging you to do that.
Don't. Yeah, exactly. Don't do it. But it's really, It's actually quite sad, and so it is very difficult to make it. Right. But as you and I were talking about before we started taping, it's life for those of us that are over 40. Hello, I'm now in that crowd officially last year.
Welcome to our midst.
Thank you.
I'm even farther in than you are.
Okay. Right. Well, you start to realize that you find your niche.
Right.
You find your niche, whatever that may be, and it takes a while. The 20s are for kind of discovering yourself and finding what you like and what you don't particularly like. And so I feel so great and so lucky. We mentioned this too, to be employed right now. We are so lucky.
Employed doing something we love.
Right.
I mean, how lucky can we be?
That is.
I've had some jobs in my life that have been a challenge. I'm sure as you have.
Yes, I have.
And to look at what I get to do every day, I get to wake up and teach the thing I love more than anything in the world, and it makes me happy every single day. I get up every day and I'm happy to go to work.
Yeah.
And I like my students, and I hope they like me, and we have a good time, and I think they learn, and it's kind of a good life.
It is. Yeah. It is. And if you can find that niche, and I'll kind of briefly tell you a story about teaching, and you can kind of either relate, or teaching is great. And I think that the public schools, when I get to go and work with high school students, we get to see them for an hour. It's like grandchildren. Right. We get to see them for an hour. We talk to them. They start to cry. We leave, when we offer a master class. I don't know what's happening right now, but but God bless those that are in the K through 12. It is a tough job, and congratulations to them. And it is a special calling to do the K through 12. And so I admire anybody with that kind of patience and everything. I love my college students. That's the perfect age for me personally, but everyone discovers what they work best with. Absolutely. So now, if a person, we talked about jobs, if a person comes to you and they're going through this degree, they're essentially doing the first 2 years of the bachelor's, what are they expected to learn by that second year, the end of the second year, when they're graduating?
If they do the process correctly, they should have gone through that introductory class, which is theater appreciation, which teaches them, and it's kind of the perfect way to start. It introduces you to all those different crafts that are involved in theater. So it introduces you to the actor. It talks about that. It introduces you to the director, the playwright, the scenic designer. It talks about theater history. I teach almost every major period in theater history in my class. Wow. And I don't spend hours and hours, but I try to make a student aware that theater didn't just develop in a vacuum. There's a long, 3,000-year history that developed theater.
Sure.
And you develop a sense of what theater criticism is. And we talk about all kinds of things in theater appreciation. We talk about, what makes an actor. What do actors have to do? A lot of people have no idea, like they don't have any concept of what you do when you learn music.
Right.
Same thing with an actor, and with doing a production. Many students are kind of aghast when I say, well, we're in rehearsals usually between 6 and 8 weeks for a show.
Yeah.
And they say, well, what is that, once a week? I'm like, no, it's every night, Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. to 9:30. I'm like, every night? I'm like, that's what it, and they're amazed that theater isn't an add water and stir production. Right. You add water and the little sea monkeys develop, and there it is, woo. No, it's a laborious heavy, process that has lots and lots of love infused in it too, because you have to love the art to do it.
Sure.
So that theater appreciation class is probably one of the most important classes we teach, because it teaches students, it gives them the opportunity to determine what they want to do.
Okay.
And then, depending on what they want, we encourage them to take Acting 1 and Acting 2, because almost any degree plan will require that. We now have a new class that we offer, this is our first semester to teach it. It's called Script Analysis. And that's a really really fun class for majors, and not just for theater majors, but I have someone who's an English major in the class, and so I mean, it can work cross-discipline. And then you should take the stagecraft classes, because we're all programs are of the mind, basically, that if you're going to be a theater major, if you're going to be an actor, you're going to be a techie, you should know something about all of the art form.
Right.
You shouldn't just think, oh, I'm going to be an actor, I don't need to know how sets are made.
Right.
You need to know that. You need to know the time and labor that goes into putting that set together.
So you can appreciate it.
Exactly.
Right.
Because you don't want to be the actor who comes on the stage and has the hissy fit because, it's not finished. No, of course it's not finished.
Right.
It takes 2 months to build this monster,
Exactly.
So, so really, Yasmine, when you get to the end of that, you should have a sense of where you want to go in theater, or if you want to continue in theater.
Right.
And you should have a sense of what all the other aspects of that theatrical endeavor are.
Okay.
So you have appreciation for what the art form is as a whole.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And so now let me ask you, now this is going to show my ignorance. A producer, is that the person that funds the show?
Yes. Generally speaking, a producer, and when you talk about producers, usually you're talking about a professional production. We do have producers here, but they're not the same kind of producers.
Okay.
Here we call people who kind of put the show together and deal with all the different aspects of putting a show together, a producer. And that's fine. A real producer in professional theater would be in charge of funding for that production. A producer would probably, he or she would have probably a hand in casting that show, or at least casting the major parts.
Got it.
A producer would have some sort of say in how the production is mounted, whether, let's say you're going to, let's say you're going to do Romeo and Juliet and you want to set it in, the deserts of, West Texas, and you want to cast coyotes as, as Romeo, and you want to cast cobra or rattlesnakes as Juliet, and the producer would have the right, because he's coming up with the, the moolah. He or she has the right to say, no, we're not going to do that. So the producer is kind of, he or she oversees that production. When you talk about a production like in El Paso, here at the college, at the university, at the UTEP Dinner Theater, in the community theater sector here in El Paso, the director is the person who makes a lot of those choices.
Got it.
What the show's going to look like, who's going to be cast, that sort of thing.
Okay.
We don't really have producers here.
Okay.
I mean, I guess Greg Taylor at the UTEP Dinner Theater would be considered a producer simply because he oversees that whole season.
Okay, got it.
And that's kind of a different animal. It is academic theater, but it's not academic theater. They're attached to an academic program, but they're kind of a separate entity, I believe.
Okay.
So they're more of an entertainment entity than necessarily an academic. Although I do think that the music theater program feeds into that UTEP Dinner Theater.
Got it. Okay, right. Yeah.
But so he's a producer. He's kind of a producer.
That makes sense. Okay. Yeah. And I haven't met him, but I do hear a lot about the UTEP Dinner Theater.
Yeah, he's done great work. We went to college together years,
how about that?
many years. We're back in the dark ages. And sorry, Greg. No offense meant. And I can hear it now. I'm going to get an email.
How many years ago, Ted?
Exactly.
Right.
Only 3 times.
Right.
But he's done great work, and they've gone to the Kennedy Center, ACTF. They've gone to the national performances. And, I mean, they've done impressive work.
Okay.
And he does shows I wouldn't touch. So.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah.
Oh cool. Oh, yeah. Very good. So. Now, what is the future of the theater department for fall? What are some of the big plans?
Well, we have a show. We're doing Candy Matson right now. In April, we're going to stream a production of a play by Edmund Rostand, which is called The Romancers, which for anybody who knows the famous musical from the 60s called The Fantastics, The Romancers was the basis for that musical. Sweet little story, very fun. It'll be great to put on the stage. So we're going to film that and upload that to YouTube. We're hoping this summer, if things settle down. Of course, we're at the hands of COVID. You know,
Right.
we have know what's going on.
Yes.
I'm in the beginning stages of working with one of my colleagues who is a professor in the speech department. Her name is Lisa McNeil.
Okay.
And we're in the beginning discussions of mounting a production of Streetcar Named Desire. We're going to do that in our Black Box Theater.
Oh, fun.
And she has agreed most generously, I'm so delighted to say this, to play my Blanche Dubois. She has
she would.
Yes, she has a degree from Rice. And just a wonderful, warm, fun person to be around, and gifted in all kinds of ways. And so I'm so excited about that. So she will be cast as Blanche, and then I will audition the other roles, mostly with students, hopefully. And what a great experience to work with someone who has been in the industry and come back to work with us in this. So hopefully that will go up this summer.
Cool.
If not, it may be postponed to the following summer, depending on what happens with COVID.
Okay.
And then we are assuming, like you are in music, that August will bring us the ability to bring in audiences and have live shows. And we've already planned our season. We're going to do a bunch of comedies to make people laugh after the tragedies of COVID.
Of course.
And so we're hoping that August will bring the ability to bring audiences into a theater in one way or another.
Ted, thank you.
Oh, thank you
for coming on. And I'm so excited about this, and we want to feature Dominic probably in about 5 or 6 episodes. So every week we're going to have a different department here at EPCC. So until next time, Mr. Carver, thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, absolutely.
Great fun.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We will see you next time.